Chapter 9. I lay awake staring at a ceiling that wasn't mine. The guest room smelled different from the rest of the house. Cleaner, unused, untouched by years of routine. Steve had always kept it ready, but it felt foreign now, like I was trespassing somewhere I didn't belong. This was a mistake. The thought came quickly, uninvited, settling deep in my chest. I shifted on the bed, hands folded behind my head, eyes tracing the faint shadows cast by the streetlight outside. The house was quiet, but not the comfortable kind. It was the kind of silence that carried weight, the kind that made you too aware of every sound, every breath. I shouldn't have agreed to this. Moving in, crossing that threshold, sleeping under the same roof as her. I exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. I'd seen the look on Arya's face when I refused the room across from hers. I told myself it was practical, that distance was necessary, that it was the responsible choice. But responsibility didn't explain the flicker of something that had crossed her expression before she masked it. Had I been too harsh? The question lingered longer than I wanted it to. She hadn't done anything wrong. She'd asked questions, bold ones, sure, but questions nonetheless. I'd shut them down without explanation, without context. Like that was enough to make the discomfort disappear. It hadn't. I rolled onto my side, staring at the wall. Why had she acted like that in the car? The thought circled endlessly. Her tone, the edge in her voice, the way she'd looked at me like she was waiting for something. I didn't know how to give. It didn't fit the image I had of her. Arya was confident, curious, sometimes impulsive. But that morning felt different, charged, personal. And I didn't understand why. Maybe I owed her a conversation. The idea settled uneasily in my mind. Not an interrogation, not a lecture. Just clarity, an explanation, something to reset whatever invisible imbalance had formed between us. She deserved that much, but not tonight. Tonight I was exhausted, not physically but mentally, drained by the effort of restraint, by the constant recalibration of boundaries that suddenly felt too thin. I closed my eyes, listening. The house creaked softly. Pipes shifted. Somewhere down the hall a door opened and closed. Her door, I realized. I stiffened, then forced myself to relax. She was just settling in, getting comfortable, living her life. Nothing about that concerned me. I turned onto my back again, staring up at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd talk to her. Keep it simple. Clear the air. Restore normalcy. That was the plan. For now I needed sleep. I let my eyes fall shut, even though my thoughts refused to slow. Because no matter how many times I told myself this was temporary, that it meant nothing, that I was overthinking. A quiet truth lingered beneath it all. I had a bad feeling. In this house, this arrangement, was already asking something of me. I wasn't sure I could give.
Chapter 10. Arya. I came downstairs already dressed. Backpack slung over my shoulder, hair still damp from the shower. I told myself I was fine. I told myself last night had been nothing more than nerves and embarrassment. That this morning would reset everything back to how it was supposed to be. Normal. Ken stood in the kitchen, back to me, making coffee. The low hum of the machine filled the space, the smell rich and grounding. He looked effortless, like he always did. Sleeves rolled up, posture relaxed, completely unaware of the way my chest tightened at the sight of him. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Morning," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "The housekeeper already set breakfast aside for you," he added. "It's covered. You'll be late if you don't eat." Something in me closed off. "Thanks, Uncle Kent." The words tasted strange in my mouth. He paused, just slightly. His hand stilled on the mug before he turned to face me, brows drawn together in mild confusion. "Why are you calling me that again?" I shrugged, focusing on adjusting my bag strap. "That's what you wanted in the first place." The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. "That's not," he started, then stopped. "You seem off." I shook my head quickly. "I'm fine." He studied me for a moment, like he was trying to solve a problem without all the pieces. "I can drop you off," he offered. "It's on my way." "No," I said immediately. "Too fast. My friend's waiting." I moved past him before he could respond, my heart pounding harder with every step toward the door. "Arya, I'm late," I said, already opening it. "See you later." I didn't wait for his reply. The door closed behind me with a quiet finality that echoed louder than it should have. As I walked down the driveway, my chest burned with something that felt dangerously close to humiliation. This was what I got for letting my thoughts wander, for imagining meaning where there was none. He didn't notice me like that. He never would, and that was on me. I pulled my phone from my pocket and stared at the unread message from Jace, the one I'd ignored for weeks. Dinner tonight, just us. I stopped walking. Maybe it was time to stop overthinking, to stop holding on to something that was never going to happen. Jace was kind, persistent, age-appropriate, safe. Everything Kent wasn't. I typed back before I could change my mind. Okay, tonight works. The reply came almost instantly. Finally, I'll pick you up at 7. I locked my phone and exhaled slowly. That was it. I would forget this ridiculous crush. Stop reading into looks and silences. Stop hoping for something that would only ever exist in my head. Tonight, I would go on a date. Tonight, I would move on. And if Kent noticed the change, if he felt the distance he'd created, that was exactly what he wanted.
Chapter 11, Kent. The house was too quiet when I got back. Not the settled kind of quiet. The wrong kind. I checked my watch as I stepped inside, keys still in my hand. Later than usual, but not late enough for the house to feel empty. Arya was never this silent in the evenings. There was always music, movement, the faint sound of her on the phone. Arya? I called out. Nothing. I frowned, setting my bag down and walking farther inside. Her shoes weren't by the door. The living room was untouched. No lights on upstairs. That uneasy feeling returned, sharp and immediate. I pulled my phone out and called her. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. My jaw tightened. I sent a message. No reply. Another. Call me. Minutes passed. Too many of them. I paced the length of the living room, irritation bleeding into something colder. Steve had trusted me with this. Left his daughter under his roof, under my watch, and she was gone, unreachable without so much as a word. My phone buzzed. Relief hit first, then confusion. I'm on a date. A date. I stared at the screen like it had personally offended me. My thumbs moved fast. Where are you? I'll come get you. The response came slower this time. I'm safe. That was it. No location. No explanation. I sent another message. Arya, send me the address. Read. No reply. Something in me snapped. I shoved the phone into my pocket and started pacing again. The house suddenly too small for the energy building in my chest. Date. With who? When? How long had she been planning this? I didn't even know the guy. I checked the time again. Then again. 2 hours passed like that. When headlights finally swept across the front lawn, I was already standing by the window. A motorcycle pulled up. My blood went cold. Some kid, leather jacket. Helmet tucked under his arm. Swung his leg off the bike like he owned the place. Arya climbed off behind him, laughing softly, hair loose, dress clinging in a way I hadn't seen before. I watched, jaw clenched, as he said something to her. Watched her smile. Then he drove off. She came inside moments later, still riding the echo of whatever night she thought she'd had. She froze when she saw me. What the hell were you thinking? The words came out hard, sharp, sounding far too much like something her father would say. Her expression shifted instantly, guarded, furious. Excuse me? You disappear. You don't answer your phone. You go out with someone I don't know. I don't need your permission, she snapped. I'm responsible for you, I shot back. No, she said, stepping closer. You're not my father. The words landed square in my chest. I didn't say I was, I replied tightly. But you don't just take off with some guy. He's not some guy. You don't even know him, I said. And I sure as hell don't. She crossed her arms. So I'm not allowed to date now? That's not what I said. It's exactly what you're saying. I ran a hand through my hair, frustration coiling tighter. You get on the back of a bike with a stranger at night. He's not a stranger. Oh, and I'm supposed to just be fine with that? She laughed bitterly. You're acting insane. I'm acting responsible. She scoffed. Because responsible men immediately assume the worst? I'm saying anyone who takes a woman out on a bike like that isn't exactly thinking about her safety. I snapped. What kind of man does that? The word was out before I could stop it. She stared at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Wow, she said slowly. So now you're judging who I go out with too. I'm judging the situation, I replied, because it's reckless. No, she said. You're judging me. The silence stretched, thick and dangerous. I was safe, she added quietly. I told you that. You ignored me. Because you don't get to interrogate me. We stood there, breathing hard, the air between us charged with something neither of us was willing to name. Finally, she shook her head. "I'm going to bed," she said. "And tomorrow we're setting boundaries. Because this," she gestured between us, "is not okay." She brushed past me, footsteps sharp on the stairs. I stood there long after her door closed, heart-pounding, anger still burning hot beneath my skin. I told myself it was concern, responsibility, loyalty to her father. But as I stared at the front door, at the empty driveway where that bike had been, one undeniable truth crept in, unwelcome and impossible to ignore. I hadn't been angry because she was unsafe. I'd been angry because someone else had touched what I was guarding. And I didn't know what that made me.
Chapter 12. Arya. I slammed my door harder than I needed to. The sound echoed through the hallway, sharp and final, and I didn't care if he heard it. I hoped he did. My chest burned with anger as I leaned against the door, fists clenched, heart racing like I'd just run miles instead of climbed a flight of stairs. He ruined everything. I kicked off my shoes and paced the length of my room, fury buzzing under my skin. I'd had fun tonight, real fun. Jace had been easy, relaxed, attentive. He'd laughed at my jokes, listened when I talked, didn't lecture me like I was reckless or irresponsible. So why couldn't Kent just let me be? Who did he think he was? I dragged my hands through my hair, groaning aloud. "God," I muttered, "you're impossible." The image of Kent standing there in the living room, angry, rigid, protective, refused to leave my mind. The way his voice had dropped. The way his eyes had darkened. I hated how much it affected me. I stormed into the bathroom and turned the tub on as hot as it would go, steam already fogging the mirror. I shed my clothes with sharp movements, stepping into the water and sinking down until it covered my shoulders. Slowly, the heat began to seep into my bones. My breathing evened out. My anger softened into something quieter. More dangerous, Jace's face drifted into my thoughts. His smile, the way he'd leaned in at the end of the night. The kiss replayed itself whether I wanted it to or not. It hadn't been bad, but it hadn't been anything either. No spark, no heat, no pull, just lips. I frowned, resting my head against the edge of the tub. I hadn't felt a thing. Not when he touched my waist. Not when he kissed me goodnight. Not even when he smiled like he expected more. And that realization unsettled me far more than Kent's anger ever could. My mind betrayed me then, sliding effortlessly into forbidden territory. Kent's lips. The thought came uninvited, vivid enough to make my breath hitch. I imagined them, firm, controlled, restrained the same way everything else about him was. I imagined what it would feel like if that control slipped. Just once, heat rushed through me that had nothing to do with the bathwater. "No," I whispered, horrified at myself. I shoved the thought away, stood up too fast, water sloshing over the edge of the tub. I wrapped myself in a towel and fled back to my room like the walls might judge me. I grabbed my pillow and buried my face in it, screaming into the fabric until my throat burned, and the sound was completely swallowed. "You're an idiot," I hissed into the cotton. A complete fool. I'd promised myself I'd forget him. I'd made a decision. I'd gone on the date. And still, he was the only one occupying my thoughts. I lay back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, heart pounding with confusion and frustration. What was wrong with me? Why did everything keep circling back to him? This wasn't love. It couldn't be. It was just a crush. A stupid, inconvenient, humiliating crush that should have faded by now. Instead, it felt louder, more insistent. I turned onto my side, clutching the pillow to my chest like it could ground me. Tomorrow would be better, I told myself. Tomorrow I'd be calmer, smarter, less this. But deep down, beneath the denial and the anger and the scolding, I knew the truth. Kent hadn't spoiled my night. He had ruined it simply by existing,